And good evening, and welcome to another edition of Ken Boxer Live. I'm your host, Ken Boxer. We have another great show for you this evening. We have John Dickson visiting with us. John Dickson may not be a household name or word, but John Dickson is a guy who connects with thousands of people daily. He owns and runs several websites, with one of them being SantaBarbara.com. In addition to that, John oversees his yearly Christmas time telephone cell center for children wanting to talk to Santa Claus. Now, if that's not enough, John's also a contributing writer to the Santa Barbara Independent. It's also entirely possible, by the way, that you may recognize John from all the national publicity he and his friends received last year from some very unique photographs. Of course, we'll be talking about that with him later on in the show. But for now, let's meet a very, very busy guy, Mr. John Dickson. Welcome.
Hi, Ken.
Do you know how long
Not
it's
as
been?
busy as you.
No. Do you know how long, when I started this show recently, I said to my brother, who's a part of the show, this is the person I want to get on the show because you have so many things going. You're so tied to everything in Santa Barbara.
Bella Shaw, John Palmentary, Baron Ron Heron here, so I'm honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Well, we're so delighted to have you here, and finally you're here. I mentioned in the intro, SantaBarbara.com, but you have many websites. But how did you get to snag, first off, SantaBarbara.com, and I think you also have some other cities.com.
Yeah, I do.
List some of them you have first.
SantaBarbara.com I got in 1995, and consequently I got Ventura.com, Oxnard.com, Camarillo.com, Carpinteria.com, San Ynez.
Lucky you.
Yeah, the reason I really got the domain names was I was into the internet really early. I was a computer geek, still am a computer geek. I was using the internet before there was even the web. And so I was very aware of the internet sensation, and when the web started to take off, a light bulb went off in my head like, hey, this is a unique opportunity to start a business. And then so I decided to start a Santa Barbara-based website. But back then, this is in the early 90s, there was no Google. There was no Bing, there was not even a Yahoo to find your website.
Or YouTube.
There was no YouTube.
Nothing.
There's not even a Ken Boxer Live. Maybe there was.
No, it was called Around the Town Live.
Oh, okay.
Back then.
Yeah, and so basically I got SantaBarbara.com so people could find the website. They'd type in the name of the city and add a .com, and they'd find it because there's no search engine.
Yeah,
so.
but back then it wasn't as simple as going to a place like GoDaddy for $12 and getting an address name. How did you go about getting that? Was SantaBarbara.com actually available, or did you have to go?
It was not available. When I finally realized I wanted to make a Santa Barbara website, I looked it up and it was gone. And so I did some research to figure out who owns it, and this guy in Woodland Hills owned it. And I did a lot of research. I didn't want to approach him and say, here, I want your domain name. For one, if I did that, he would ask for $1 million.
Right.
And two, I just didn't want to, needed to know more about him. And so he owned a whole bunch of unrelated domain names that were all pretty good. One of them was girls.com, I remember, and he was a collector, so I realized SantaBarbara.com wasn't probably that valuable. I don't think he had an interest in Santa Barbara. And so I decided to lowball. I said, how about $300? And he said, nope, but if you double it, I'll take it. I'll sell it to you. I'm like, oh, wow. Inside, I'm just like, oh, my God, this is amazing. This is 1995. Yeah.
But since 95, have you been building on it or on the website, SantaBarbara.com, or did it just in the last few years come to be what it is today?
I've been building it really since then. It's approaching 20 years. There's over like 100,000 pages on there. You might not even notice it because you'd really have to browse the whole site to see that. But yeah, I've been building it for decades, really, at this point.
Well, back then, did you even foresee what was going to happen with that website in particular, that it was going to take off as well?
No, in the very early days, I really didn't know what it was going to be. You would think, right now it's a tourism website, and for locals, there's restaurant information and movies and just information about Santa Barbara. But early on, I didn't know what to do with it. I was thinking, well, make it a website so computer geeks like myself can gather computer information. Well, that didn't fly. And just over time, I just kind of figured out, put Santa Barbara information on there. So by '96, I just started driving around town, taking photos and writing. You know, I'd spend my weekends just taking pictures and writing and put it on the web. And nobody was doing that back then. I mean, it was actually the first Santa Barbara website, because there was no money to be made then, and it was just kind of a waste of time in the early days.
But is it true, tell me if I'm wrong, is it true that officials in Santa Barbara, for the mayor or people in the city development, that they've been after you trying to get that name that you snagged? Because now it's the city has Santa Barbara CA. .gov.
.gov, that's right.
But I was told that there's some officials that just are, would love to grab it. Has anyone ever approached? Is that a true story that they'd like to get it?
Yeah.
Well, did they ever offer you a price?
No.
Would you ever?
No one has money these days.
Would
so
you
why
ever
bother?
willing to sell that?
Well, if it stops being fun, sure. But I have a good time.
I mean, is it a lot of work to keep everything up and running?
No, it's not that hard. I mean, a lot of the work, I'd say from '95 to 2005 was the hardest part. Was literally driving to every beach, every park, literally going to every single restaurant, which is over 700, taking pictures inside and out. I mean, just developing it. But a lot of that content is still relevant today. So the bulk of that I built is still useful. But I work on it every day, but just not at the feverish pace I did back in my youth.
But why do you think, though, that one particular area in your website is attracted to so many? The site I'm referring to is the part in your website regarding to restaurants and people doing critiques of the restaurants and what's opening and what's closing. Why is there a fascination with restaurants and not with, people don't talk about the gas station they just visited,
right.
or the grocery store. Everybody has something to say about restaurants. Why do you think that is so on your website?
Well, part of it has to do that I was the first restaurant source in town. There was no Yelp. There was no restaurants. I made the very first restaurant guide in '95. And so people were finding information that wasn't available anywhere. I mean, all you had was the phone book, and suddenly you come here and you can, the phone book, half the stuff in the phone book were closed by the time you call it. And so here's this updated list. And so really being early on a source for restaurant information kind of started a following, and then over time I started adding things that you didn't have in the phone book. You know, I started out with just like the phone book, with restaurant name, address, and phone. And then I started, adding like a review system. Again, Yelp was years away, and now suddenly people could actually read, comments that other people are doing. This was a new thing. Now
some of them are brutally honest.
Yeah. Well, I do filter everything. I make sure it's not too bad. If it's there. There is rules.
But you're now called the restaurant guy.
Yeah.
First off, how did that come about? How did the name come about? I know now there's the restaurant gal as well.
Yes, the restaurant gal.
You got married.
Started last year as a new title.
Great. And how did it happen that you would become the restaurant guy?
Well, Ken, as I mentioned, I started the restaurant guide in 1995, which was a list of restaurants. And in the process of running that, I found that I had a lot of information about, I knew who was open and who's closed. People would email me and say, hey, that restaurant you have listed is closed, so I would know that it's closed. Or someone would say, here's this place that's been open for 3 weeks and it's not in your guide. And suddenly I go, oh, wow. And so I learned information. And so I had it. I actually knew the restaurant scene better than anyone in town, but it was just something that was natural to me because I ran a restaurant guide. And in 2006, I just said, I've got all this stuff that I know. I know everyone who's coming for the next year, every restaurant that's coming, and no one knows. I thought, well, maybe I'll make a blog, because blogs were really the hot thing, and they still are big, but it was like a new thing then. So I put a blog out it had no name at all, and I just put out the restaurant news, and very quickly people started reading it. And to me, it was
not just people who go to restaurants, but people like me in the industry. Restaurant owners, we go to your website, that blog, weekly, daily, all the time, just to see what the latest news is. It's a great place.
That's good.
But I know, and it's great for everybody.
Yeah.
you brought with you a clip. We're going to segue into another.
Sure.
You do so much, John, that we got to try and get
Again,
this all
I
in.
don't think I'm as busy as you. Come on.
No. You're very busy because what you do every year, and what we're going to see with the accidental Santa. You brought with you a clip. I want you can just kind of tell us what you brought with you on that clip. Can you lead us into that?
Sure. Well, as we've been talking about, I run SantaBarbara.com on the website. In 2006, I got a phone number to be the companion to SantaBarbara.com. I got 1-800-SANTA-BARBARA. I got this, around Christmas time, 2006, and when I activated the phone line, I started getting calls from little kids wanting Santa Claus, and I just played along with it, just answered the phone, and I just had fun. And I figured out that people were trying to dial 1-800-SANTA-CLAUS, which was one digit off my number, and the news press put a little story about it in the paper. And the next day, that story hit the AP wire, and national media sources started calling me, and one of them was Fox News. Fox asked me to come to the studio and interviewed me about all the tens of thousands of calls that were pouring into my phone line.
Okay, so right now, up to this point, we got the restaurant guy and the accidental Santa. Let's watch John Dickson as the accidental Santa.
It's a Christmas edition of Mistaken Identity with a feel-good ending. One Santa Barbara businessman has been accidentally receiving the phone calls for 1-800-SANTA-CLAUS because his home business happens to be just one digit off that number. John Dickson plays along with hundreds of kids each day who think they are actually calling jolly old St. Nick. John joins us now to tell us how it feels to be the accidental Santa. Well, when did you first realize this was going to be a thing, there's going to be a problem you're going to have to deal with?
Well, my first question is, have you been a good boy all year, Brian?
Yes, I have been a good boy.
Okay, good. Well, Santa will come visit you tonight then. That's good. Well, I discovered this about 2 weeks ago. I just got a call from a little kid who wanted a blue truck and a pony and a spider. And I'm like, okay. I played along, and then I realized that people had were trying to dial 1-800-SANTA-CLAUS, and they were reaching my number, 1-800-SANTA-BARBARA, which was different by one digit.
Yeah.
And the calls just came in, and what started as about 100 calls a day is now 50, 100 calls an hour.
Now,
it is hilarious.
Look,
it's really fun.
There's two ways you can go with this. You can say you can get irritated, or you can just have some fun with it. You chose to just have fun with it.
Oh, I have fun with it, absolutely, Brian. It's if you talk to these kids, they're so full of love and hope, and they're really nervous, and they're serious, and they're thrilled to talk to Santa. It's just such an honor to be able to talk to each and every one of them. I really enjoyed the experience, and I talk to parents too on occasion. If parents call with a child who's all upset and needs Santa to help calm their kid down, and so it's in fact, this morning I talked to a little girl named Shelby in Billings, Montana, who asked Santa for a diamond ring.
Wow.
And I said, what else do you want? She said, another diamond ring. But I never promise anything for the kids. I make sure that they ask their parents for any toys, and then Rudolph and I will come visit tonight.
All right. Well, listen, thank you very much. What a great story. Just very quickly, the most unusual thing you've been asked for?
I've been asked if there's a Mrs. Claus in my life. I get all sorts of questions. It's really fun.
All right, good deal. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Okay.
And John Dickson's our guest. You're watching Ken Boxer Live. John, that's fascinating. We did all by an accident. Now I totally understand. Is it easy to get your elves working for you? How do you get the people working for you? Because I know before the show you said you get something like 20,000 calls during a short period of time.
We answer 20,000 calls. We actually get like 250,000+ calls come in, and they just ring. Yeah, we get.
Oh, you don't have any voicemail or anything?
Well, the first year I did the call center, we set up a voicemail system. It had 50,000 capacity, and it filled up in like an hour the first year. So we realized voicemail wasn't that useful in something of this volume. But so the clip that you saw was it was in 2006, and that's when I was the only one answering the phone. The following year, I realized, my number had just been put all over, on national television. It was also one digit off, 1-800 Santa Claus. I knew calls were coming in. And so I'm like, oh, now what do I do? So I came up with the idea of starting a call center. And Montecito Bank and Trust, the first year, they helped me launch the call center. They provided the phone system and the place for the call center downtown.
But initially that 800 number was for
it's SantaBarbara.com's number. It still is to this day. But in December, it stops being my business line and it becomes the Santa line.
Do you actually answer that 800 number throughout the year?
Uh-huh.
Okay, but do people call it as a Santa line throughout the year as well?
Occasionally I'll get a call in the summer, hello, SantaBarbara.com. It's like, Santa, there's one thing I really got to tell you now, even though it's 6 months or early, I got to tell you I want a truck or whatever, Yeah.
But, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically I realized people were going to call in, kids were going to call in, and so.
But the other 800 number, that was for the real Santa, the so-called real Santa, not the accidental Santa. Did you ever call that? What would somebody get when they call that number?
It's a dead phone line because they get a lot of calls, and the person who runs that doesn't want to run a Santa Claus call line, because remember, 800 numbers you pay for every call. And they didn't want to run a call center. So I was and still am the only live Santa line. There are other Santa things now you can call, but you have to put in your credit card number or whatever. And so this is just a free call for anyone who wants to call.
But you, as you said, you have the bank, Santa Barbara Bank.
The first year they helped us launch it. Now I run it out of my home.
Yes, but it's costing you every time.
Yeah, each call. Yeah, but as I've over the years, I figured out how to keep the expenses to a minimum. I find the best rates for toll-free. I have the very best rate possible, and I have the equipment built up.
Is it based also on longevity of the call? In other words, you want to make a quick call? In other words, when someone calls, you want to get them off as soon as possible for a number of reasons to get to the next call?
Every call we'll take to the end. We have one volunteer named Harley Hahn. He'll go, he's like the king of the 15-minute call. He's like a child therapist, and we have all sorts of great volunteers, and I tell people to talk as long as you want. And so we don't try to get them off the phone because we will never answer all the calls. As I said, we're answering just a fraction of the calls that are coming in, so we try to give a quality time to each kid, because it's a real big deal to each kid. Each kid, it's the first time to ever speak to Santa, and they're nervous, and they don't want a hello, goodbye. They want to tell us what they want for Christmas.
Well, from what I want you to tell us about, besides telling us what I'll tell you what I want for Christmas.
Yeah.
You were the restaurant guy.
If you've been a good boy.
I've been good. You got the restaurant guy, then you're doing this with the accidental Santa.
That's right.
But now you're also, every 5 years, there's this picture I mentioned in the introduction. Every 5 years, you're going to be with your buddies taking a photo, and this went all around the country. Everyone was talking about this. Tell us about it.
Well, yeah, something odd happened last year. My friends and I have been meeting. We vacation at a lake in Northern California, and we took a picture in 1982. This is a group of high school friends. We all went to Santa Barbara High. We're all local guys. And we vacationed in this cabin that my friend owns, and we took a picture, a group photo, and we just happened to be there like 5 years later, 1987, and we were all, okay, let's just retake that picture. 10 years later, we were there, and we decided to retake this picture of this one random photo of a bunch of guys sitting on a bench in the cabin. And so it just became a tradition. So we said, every 5 years for the rest of our lives, let's take this photo. And we've been doing this. And we take the photo and we put it all on our photo albums, or in this case, we put it on our Facebook pages, photo albums we don't use anymore. And then it's just, forget about it for another 5 years.
Were you surprised by the reaction? I mean, this went all. Were you on the Today Show, for God's sake?
Yeah, I couldn't believe
Matt
that.
Lauer.
Yeah, that's right. It's right. And they invited all of us. What happened is CNN picked up the story, and they did a story on it, and that went viral and it went everywhere. It was competing on the homepage of Yahoo with the Olympics as like the top story. It was unbelievable. And the story went everywhere.
Well, you brought a clip with you on this.
Yes, I did.
Let us know what we're about to see.
Yeah, what you're about to see is was taken in August last year. CNN had just put the story. It was exploding. They said, we've got 50 million visitors to this story in the first couple of days. And they asked me to come down and explain what these photos were, because no one, this was a new thing.
I saw it in the LA Times. That's how I saw it.
Really?
Well, let's watch this clip,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
John Dickson and his friends.
How did this really become a tradition? I mean, every 5 years you would do this. Why?
Well, what happened is we would go every year. So we were there in 83, 84, 85, and then we all realized we were all there in 87, and John Wardlaw, the guy on the left who owns the cabin, he said, hey, let's recreate that photo that we took back in 82. And so we retook, we posed exactly, we tried to get into position. We had John Maloney had a jar, and Mark Rumor had a hat.
And in the jar,
we just kind of recreated the photo.
And in the jar, a cockroach. Did I read this?
We captured a cockroach in the jar. Because imagine, this is a group of guys. We do pranks. We're just weird, having a good time.
Bunch of
we
dudes.
captured a cockroach in a jar, and then we gave the cockroach some food. So we threw a butterscotch candy in there. And then we thought maybe the cockroach would be lonely, so we cut out a picture from a magazine of actor Robert Young. We tucked that in there, and when we took that original photo, for whatever reason, John Maloney picked up the jar and held it up just when we took the photo, because our little mascot at the lake was there, and we've been holding a jar up ever since. But it was really John Wardlaw's idea to duplicate this in 1987.
Okay.
And we've just been doing it every 5 years ever since. We just thought it'd be fun to duplicate it, and
as
we're going to keep going.
John Dickson, we appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this shirt, just to prove it's me, this is the shirt. We wear it all.
I believe it's you, John Dickson. I
photos.
believe it's you. Thank you so much. And I think this story might inspire a bunch of other people to kind of do the same thing. I think it's just a fantastic
it's fun.
tradition.
It is a fun thing to do. Great thing. I suggest everyone do that.
Welcome back. You're watching Ken Boxer Live, our guest, John Dickson. John, I was just watching this, so is everybody else. When's the next time you're going to be having another photo shoot like that?
2017, Paul Verkaman of CNN is the one who actually first found this story, and he said he's actually interested in maybe covering it live from our lake. Who knows? So in 2017.
Are you surprised, though, that you got
totally
this much
surprised.
attention to just a
Yeah.
story of some guys sitting on a bench?
Can you imagine pulling photos out of your photo album and suddenly them going all over the world? I mean, it was a total shock to all of us. We had no idea.
What was it like going to the Today Show on this particular story? I mean, it got that much publicity.
It was really fun because as it got more and more publicity, we were just in shock. We couldn't believe it was happening. Then suddenly my friend calls and says, NBC called and said they're flying us all to New York City. We're just like, we couldn't believe it. And then to add to that, they said, and we can bring all our wives too.
Nice.
So it was great.
And I remember, if my memory serves me, it was during the time of right after the Olympic Games, because there was an Olympic gymnast who had won the gold medal was on the same show, right?
That's right. The whole women's Olympic gymnastic team was hanging out in the green room with us while we're waiting to go on. They're on after us. So we're chatting with Gabby Douglas and all these superstars, and it was really fun to hang out there with them. And it was a surreal experience, and all five of us suddenly meeting together. We only meet every 5 years, so suddenly all the five guys are together again in New York City. It was so much fun. It's hard to describe. And then people signing autographs. We were signing autographs around New York City. It was even more so. I'm at the Statue of Liberty, and people are like, "Oh yeah, we saw you!" And
But with all this that's going on for you, John, you also find time to write for the Santa Barbara Independent, as I mentioned, as the restaurant guy. Can you give us a lead story? What are some of the things happening besides your appearance here on our show? Any lead stories of what's happening in the restaurant industry in Santa Barbara?
Well, Taco Bell is coming to Goleta in the University Plaza Shopping Center.
Okay.
That's coming. Just hot off the press.
In fact, you have some information.
I have
You brought it with
the
you.
very latest information.
Let's hear.
There is a bar called Olio Crudo Bar coming to 18 West Victoria Street. No one knows that, but you do now.
And everybody else.
And it's run by Olio y Limon restaurant. The Loving Spoonful restaurant is coming to the Mesa Shopping Center. No one knows that, but
What
do.
is? Do you know what that's going to be? Loving Spoonful of what?
I don't know what that's going to be. And then there's two Loving restaurants, and the Loving Oven Mediterranean Bakery is coming to Isla Vista. So that's
And knowing, John, you have your finger on the pulse of this town.
Yeah.
So many restaurants open, so many close.
That's right. About 40 open and 40 close a year. But at this point, we're already reached 40. As of today, we've reached 40 restaurants open, and 27 is closed. So we're actually had fewer closures than our average, far fewer. So that's always a good sign.
And the funny thing is, you're the restaurant guy, and you've never opened a restaurant.
No, in fact, I don't know anything about food.
You don't know anything about food. That's the joke.
You should be writing my column.
No.
What am I doing there?
But you get to go to all the different events, the
Yeah, it's
openings of
fun.
things,
It's
and
fun.
they having you
Just
judging.
tonight, I came to the opening of Paloma. They had a grand opening party. And
Yeah.
it's very fun. It's
and
fun.
people invite you to be judges of
Yeah,
of
that's right.
clam chowder.
Yeah, that's right. It's right. It's fun. And yet I'm a closet computer geek. But somehow I ended up doing the restaurant column. And it's a fun thing.
What do you have? I mean, everything that you do, it sounds like it's fun.
Yeah,
You must
yeah,
be
it is.
enjoying life.
I am. I'm enjoying life. And once I got married last year, it brought it to a whole new level. Life is really good. And I'm very lucky to do what I do.
John,
Thank you for having me.
you're very welcome. And I got to tell you, as I mentioned at the early on in the show, that having you on, I mean, when I think of this show is based in Santa Barbara, so who else would I want who, like I said, has their finger on the pulse of what's going on in this town? And if people want to see this show, your website, they're going to know everything there is to know on a day-to-day basis in Santa Barbara, especially restaurants. Thank you so much again.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. It's great to be on Ken Boxer Live.
Well, thank you so much. Well, hey, that's another edition of Ken Boxer Live. Hey, we don't want you to leave us with just yet. Stay with us on kenboxerlive.com and catch all the latest Ken Boxer Live programming news. Now, if you've missed some of our past shows, just go to our kenboxerlive.com website. That's definitely where you want to be, okay? So for my guest, John Dickson, and for my director, Nick Ferretti, and for my fantastic production crew, I'm Ken Boxer saying we'll see you on Ken Boxer Live. Good night, everybody.